safety and kind of our involvement and work in it. We've been involved in kind of hydrogen projects. We've used hydrogen as a test gas for many, many years, and we have a long legacy at this site, which I'll mention a bit more about. But I've certainly been involved for about the last 20, 25 years, and hopefully I'll give you a flavour of what some of those projects are about as we go through. Bear with me, it doesn't seem to want to change slides. There we go. So hoping to cover a bit of an introduction on HEA and net zero. Clearly, for us, there's lots of aspects of net zero, much broader than just hydrogen, but hydrogen's a very significant one, particularly from the work that goes on this site. I'll then talk about our involvement in hydrogen safety. It's more than just the research that we do. There's quite an international kind of aspect to it, which is quite important. The kind of the coordination, the kind of backing one another up in terms of organisations repeating tests, doing lots of those things. So there's quite an international community that's been doing lots of that, which you might be aware of. I'll then go on to talk about projects and areas of interest. So I'll cover some of the recent projects. And then I've got a list of things at the end, which are kind of areas that we're quite interested in just now. Interested to speak to people too. Maybe they'll kind of prompt a few questions as we go through. And then there's a summary. Okay, so the picture on the right, some of you may know it. That's the HEC Buxton site, this Test and Research Centre. We're on a 550-acre site in Buxton, in Derbyshire, just south of Buxton. The site's got a long legacy, so it's been here since 1926, so almost 100 years, when it opened as the Safety in Mines Research Establishment. It was opened by that chap there in the hat. He basically the challenge then was, in coal mines we were killing about 5,000 people a year. Didn't really understand why it was happening, and so the Safety in Mines Research Establishment was set up here, which was a long way from any mines, to kind of understand what all that was about and get to the bottom of it. And the rest is history, and now there's no more mining, which is good. But clearly back then, coal was king. That's where all the energy came from. And then just a little comment about what I'm going to say. Clearly looking to the future, some of the technologies that we're interested in now, and particularly today, obviously, hydrogen. HEC's role. So one of HEC's objectives for the next 7 years, I think, it was a 10-year objective, came out a few years ago, to enable industry to innovate safely to prevent major incidents, supporting the move towards net zero. So all of the hydrogen work that we do kind of fits in there. You can see on the right, the three blobs: science, policy, regulation. This is kind of a key underpinning of HEC. The way that HEC regulates and the policies that it sets are underpinned by evidence, underpinned by the science. So hopefully you can see there that the different aspects, the breadth of what we have to cover, and a little bit of an indication of how the bits fit together. So while I've worked predominantly in the science area, clearly I am influenced by some of the people in policy and regulation in terms of what their interests are and how they might see the future and some of those things. So that gives you a bit of a flavour of what HEC are about. In terms of net zero, we have something called the Net Zero Hub, which cuts across all of HEC. And these are just some of the areas that we're interested in. It's not the best slides, I realise, but hopefully it gives you a flavour of the things that are there. So D on the right-hand side there, clearly hydrogen, some of the aspects of hydrogen, but lots of other things we're interested in as well. So batteries, very significant. Building retrofitting, some of the things in that space are clearly quite important. Carbon capture and storage is something that we're very interested in at the moment. Novel liquid fuels, ammonia, real interest there. So there's a whole range of challenges for HEC as a regulator across those aspects of policy, regulation and the science that they're pursuing right now as part of kind of supporting the net zero mission for the UK. So I'll try and talk a bit about the unique hydrogen capability we've got here at Buxton. So the facets of it are we're been involved in many projects and continue to be involved in many collaborative projects. So EU funded projects, joint industry projects with a range of organisations, some work just funded by government occasionally, We also participate internationally in a number of ways. So certainly participated in the International Energy Agency Safety Task. Been very active in something called the International Association Hydrogen Safety, IEA HiSafe, which I'll say a bit more about. I've been quite involved in that, and that's been around since the early 2000s and was initiated by European funding initially for a network of excellence, and was really has been kind of foundational, and now is very much an international organisation covering many aspects in the hydrogen safety space. Research and testings for industry is key thing here. So we do that for energy companies. We work closely with the gas industry, which you'll hear a bit more about, vehicle manufacturers, the whole range of organisations. And then obviously we work with HEA, but other broader UK government as well. Just talked about the hub, some of the interest there and how they cut across. But other organisations that we've worked closely with recently are DESNES and the ATI, Aviation Technologies Institute. We've been doing quite a bit of work in that space through something called Fly Zero that they did a few years ago, and off the back of that, and I've got a slide where I'll just touch on some of that later.
Mark Crowley.
Okay.
Cheers.
Do you want to go on mute,
Just
Mark?
mute. I'll just mute Mark. He might have muted himself already. Yeah.
Learning from incidents. Clearly, we'd all love for there to be no incidents ever. In the hydrogen space, that's what we're all striving for. As more people are using hydrogen for different applications, statistically, some things are going to happen, and we need to learn from all of that. I've got a few pictures here of some significant ones that maybe we're all familiar with. So there was the Norway refueling station incident. These were all in 2019, I think. The Air Products in California, which I think was also 2019. And then the very unfortunate incident that was in South Korea, where a couple of people were killed when the hydrogen storage, I think, was contaminated with oxygen, and the consequences were clearly not good. So these are all things that we need to learn from, clearly. There are a few initiatives. So as part of HiSafe, we kicked off something called the Hydrogen Incident Accident Database, which is now looked after by the European Commission. So there's lots of data recorded in there on hydrogen incidents, and some analysis of that is taking place. And also through the Centre for Hydrogen Safety in the US, we kind of share information across the database with what they have as well. So really important to learn from that information. Understanding what kind of failures might lead to incidents is clearly key. And until we do a lot of it, then it's very difficult to find out what that information is. It's how you get to that place in a safe way that we're all striving for. I mentioned International Association Hydrogen Safety. Every other year we have a conference. So we had our conference in September, International Conference on Hydrogen Safety 2025. We were in South Korea, in Seoul, with South Korean Gas Safety and the Ministry of Trade there. There's a bit of a flavour there. I think that's a little bit out of date. There are more members now, but it's a very broad membership, really quite powerful in the way it kind of helps us kind of look at things in lots of ways as an association. So key thing we do is the conference. We also do research priorities around hydrogen safety. We get every other year when we're not having a conference, we get together and we think about lots of that, produce documents, which I think leads on to the next slide. Clearly documents produced by ourselves, HSE. So a lot of the work we do gets reported as research reports. So those are the red documents. If you go and do a search on the HSE, well, you could probably use Google, search for HSE research reports, hydrogen, hopefully it'll give you a list of them. And there's an example there. There's a document there from quite a few years ago, which is the report on the research priorities, one of the research priorities workshops. So that will give you some information about how that process works and how we can kind of think about the things that are coming up in the future. There's a book there, Hydrogen Safety for Energy Applications, produced by HiSafe. And there's also fairly recently this new Hydrogen Safety Journal, International Journal Hydrogen Safety. And I think the report from the last research priorities is in that journal, and a number of best papers from the conference that happened in South Korea will be in that journal as well. And hopefully, if you can find them through the links that I've given there. I will share these slides as a PDF later, so you'll get the information. Okay, bit about the legacy of work. We've been involved in many projects over many years. Don't try and look at the detail of this. It's just to kind of show you what's there. So the work we've done in the hydrogen space has been for the nuclear industry. That was fairly early on. Lots of stuff around vehicle refueling, so particularly hazards around the actual vehicle refueling process. Not so much about vehicles, but about the refueling process. Lots of work with the gas networks, projects that many of us are familiar with, I'm sure. High deploy and blending, H21, other similar projects. Done quite a bit of work around liquid hydrogen, which is becoming more and more important, I think, as we kind of move forward and things scale up. More people are certainly interested in thinking about it. Clearly, there's a problem with supply in the UK, but it's an interesting area. And kind of linking into that liquid hydrogen thing, we've done quite a bit of work with the aviation sector as well, which I think I've got a slide on, which I'll get to as I go through. So yeah, a whole load of things there that we've been involved in over many years. We probably have about 30 to 40 people in the lab who get involved in the hydrogen projects in various aspects from the point of view of experimentalists. We have some theoreticians, we have some CFD modelers, statistics, human factors, the whole range of things, risk management. As I'm sure you can imagine, as a broad organization that supports HEA across everything that it does, bringing that expertise together in kind of the hydrogen space is quite powerful and has been very useful. Okay, so I'll just kick off. What I've got is a few pictures of some of the incidents just to give you a flavour, and I think I've got one or two videos too. Decarbonisation of heat. So I think I mentioned H21, high deploy, H100. This is a facility we have on site that was developed as part of H21, and perhaps many of you are familiar with, to basically look at components taken out of the gas network and see how they performed with hydrogen. So the facility is available now. It's actually been used for something else at the moment, for some of the work that we're doing, but quite a useful facility. Allows us to do reasonable scale hydrogen testing in an outdoor environment with a bit of weather protection in a place where no one's going to worry about it. If things don't go as well as you might, or you have some expected failures that we can plan for. So it's that type of facility, and it obviously on the site here in Buxton. This is the first of the EU projects I'm going to talk about, a project called Multi-High Fuel. So this project's actually come to an end now, but it was about thinking about and looking at how we get hydrogen refueling on the forecourt next to petrol and diesel. So you can see the membership there, quite a broad membership from across Europe. A range of kind of work went on as part of this project. I think there are a few reports out there, certainly, and you should be able to find stuff via the European Commission website. If not, get in touch with us and we can certainly let you have some information from here. And the tests we were doing, as you can see there, we were looking at failures from a refueling system, which then ignited outside the dispenser, and understanding what the hazards might be as part of such failure and the things you might do to control them. So hopefully fairly self-explanatory, but what it's about. And you can see there, number of measurements were made to understand what was happening. Involved in another project called High Tunnel. So this was again European Commission. You can see the partners across the bottom there. This is about basically it's pre-normative research for the safety of hydrogen-driven vehicles and transport in road tunnels. Although very much lots of it applies to rail tunnels and other similar environments. So the sorts of things we were looking at were safety device operation in a tunnel, the failure of tanks, though very unlikely, to try and understand what that meant if that happened in a tunnel. And you can see there a few pictures of what that's about. This is a bit of video which might not work so well, but I'll try and play it anyway. It might get a bit jumpy. So this was a simulated tank failure. We had put together a system that allowed us to release quite a lot of hydrogen very quickly. It ignites itself immediately, as often happens with hydrogen. So the idea there was obviously to understand the consequences of a tank failure like that, what you might do about it, features you might incorporate in the tunnel, understand the levels of risk. Whole load of information that was brought together as part of the wider consortium, which involved Vladimir Molkov, who's just joining us now. So it was a very important project. And there's just a few pictures there. I realised probably the video didn't play very well. So you can see there some of the pictures that we've just kind of grabbed from that. The tunnel facility top right, 70 meters long, 3.6 meter diameter. Very robust facility built kind of 2006 to 2007. We've had it on site for a while. Also looked at the impact of high pressure hydrogen jets on materials. So the picture bottom right here is looking at the impact that such jets had on concrete. Liquid hydrogen, mentioned already. So we've been involved looking at liquid hydrogen since about 2008, 2010, I think is when we really started doing practical work. We facilitate it here by bringing a tanker. We have hazardous materials consent, so we can bring a 3-ton tanker on site. We bring that on site and it allows us to operate and carry out a range of tests. We'd like to have liquid hydrogen available for longer periods here, but typically we have a tanker for maybe 4 or 5 weeks, something like that, and we can carry out a program of tests. So liquid hydrogen, clearly very interesting. Not only is it flammable, it's also very, very cold, and you get some interesting things happening like condensing oxygen and nitrogen from the air, which is the picture bottom right. And some of the hazards then associated with that. Clearly, these are some situations that are quite extreme, and hopefully with some sensible mitigation in place, you would never ever get yourself to. But because of the way we have to approach things and the way clearly we work as HEA, we've got to understand all situations and hence getting to that point there. So this is just a bit of video, not terribly exciting. I won't let it play for too long. And this is just showing you doing some releases, horizontal releases of liquid hydrogen from a tanker and how the release kind of develops. And an important point is cold hydrogen doesn't go straight up. It is quite dense, does cling to the ground, but eventually, clearly, as it warms, does start to pick up. So it's understanding some of this and building this into codes and standards. As part of the project, and apologies, I don't have the other members from the project here, which is again an EU-funded project, Presley High, pre-normative research into safety of liquid hydrogen. Models have been developed which kind of predict lots of this behaviour, and that's kind of the idea of lots of these consortium projects that we get involved in. Said I would mention aviation. So clearly there's quite a bit of interest in liquid hydrogen as a potential fuel for aviation. This is just a slide produced by Aerospace Technologies Institute and the Hydrogen Capability Network. Excuse me, which hopefully just highlights some of the challenges that are out there in terms of some of the practical things that need doing around infrastructure, some of the challenges around skills, fact for some the need for some research capability if this develops into an important area, some of the big materials challenges in this space, health and safety clearly, and then some of the other things just about understanding the properties of liquid hydrogen as when it's used in an application like this. Clearly, lots of interest. I think there's been a recognition, which maybe many of us have kind of seen, that this is a bigger challenge than maybe people thought, and it's going to take longer, and that's certainly been out there kind of for everybody to see. But clearly an important area, particularly for a country like the UK that's heavily involved in aerospace and clearly sees a future in aerospace also. Okay, quick skim through projects. I said I'd just mention some current areas of interest. So quite interested in venting of hydrogen, and a few words there all around it. Still interested in leakage of liquid hydrogen, and particularly around transfer fittings. We have lots of problems when handling transfer fittings. Bulk liquid hydrogen storage, clearly bringing bulk storage of liquid hydrogen and putting it in the right place in the UK is an important thing that we want to get right. Pipeline risk assessments, long-term hydrogen material compatibility testing, an area that we're getting into, but many others are too. So we can understand properties of long term. And then the bottom one there is ingress of air into hydrogen assets, understanding leakage and potential consequences. So these are just some of the topic areas that have been kind of pulled together through, I think, our regulatory colleagues and some of the technical people here in terms of areas that we're just thinking about for the future. Just mention, in terms of skills development and kind of just bringing communities together, maybe many of you are aware of the Safe Net Zero events that we pulled together. Done a number of them over the years. The last one was in Manchester, safety considerations for materials used in hydrogen environments. A very successful event back in 2024. There's certainly on the HEA website, you'll be able to find more information on those. And the next event, very timely, is coming up later this month. So this is safety considerations for production and large-scale hydrogen storage of hydrogen and its derivatives. It will be in Edinburgh. If you scan the QR code there, it will take you to the page, I think, and you can get more information on the event. And we're certainly looking forward to that at the end of the month. I'll quickly summarise. I'm trying to keep roughly to time. Hopefully I've got across. Safe Net Zero brings challenges across different technologies. So we're doing lots in the hydrogen space, but we've got lots of other challenges in other areas too. We want it all to happen safely. Clearly, we all want that to happen. From the point of view of the work we're doing, we like to think we performed some unique research, collaborating with a range of organisations and working for a range of organisations. We have some fairly unique capability here, which is recognised around the world. And when I say that, I don't just mean the facilities we have. Some of the people that work here as well are exceptional. Work with and support key stakeholders in the UK and internationally. Working as part of that community is really, really important, and I think has really helped move things on in this space. And this, the last point is more or less kind of reiterating the same. Helping and growing the international community to address safety challenges has been really important. Certainly the way we've all looked at things, the way we've approached it, and lots of the scientific work that kind of corroborates one another's work that we've done. It's clearly, and we all realise it's very important to take an holistic approach, focusing on standards, regulations, training and skills, as well as lots of the science that underpins all of that. These are the things that need to move forward. With that, I will say thank you for listening. My email's there if you'd like to drop me a line. There's a disclaimer that I have to use. So these are my own views and opinions. But hopefully you found it interesting and it's told you about the work that we do here. And I'll just pop that back up again in case anybody didn't manage to take a picture when I put it up the previous time. And hope to see many of you in Edinburgh at the end of the month. So with that, I will stop sharing.
Thanks, Stuart. That was really informative. So thank you very much for providing that presentation. I think there's already one question in the chat, so we'll go to that one first. But if members would like to begin raising their hands, if they have direct questions for the HSE or they want to share their perspectives in terms of hydrogen safety, then if we make a queue with our raised hands, that would be great. But David, I know that you've asked a question in the chat, and you're welcome to come in and expand on your question more. But Stuart, it's around it. Does HSE think there is sufficient technical guidance on safe uses of hydrogen, such as the ISO TR 15916 for general hydrogen safety cases, and other standards, for example, for electrolyzers and burners?
Okay, I mean, I'm not exactly sure how David's kind of coming with that question, but certainly that sort of information is out there, is very important and has been very useful. probably something I should have said during the presentation. Hydrogen has been around for 100 years and used by many organisations in lots of different applications. While those documents exist, as we would expect, if you're going to develop your own facilities, develop your own equipment, you're going to work with hydrogen, that you have some competence, so you have something else to back up what you're doing there, a good understanding, some experience, probably some formal training to back all of that up. So at the moment, there are things happening out there which seem to be happening reasonably safely. Touch wood, want to be really careful what I say. But yeah, I think to kind of answer his initial question, I think so. At the moment, the situation is following similar to other technologies, and I think is progressing reasonably well.
Thanks, Stuart. Lee, I know you've
Thank
got
you.
your hand up. If you'd like to come in.
Hi, Stuart. I'm
Hiya.
Lee Juby. I'm with Fuel Cell Systems. We design and manufacture hydrogen refueling stations. I was very interested to see the slide you showed on the testing you'd done at a hydrogen refueling station where you showed an ignition source. My question is several parts really is there a report available of the findings from that work you did? Can you give any overview of the sort of findings you may have found? And then has any of that work made its way into the standards that we should be looking at?
So I think because it was a European project, it's all available in the public domain. So it's out there. And if you drop me an email, I'll help direct you towards it and some of the people who are involved here to help you understand some of that. I can't say too much more about. I wasn't directly involved in lots of practical work that happened, but it certainly, it gave lots of important guidance around the sorts of things and the sorts of considerations you should have in terms of designing and improving the development of this. And I think it is finding its way into the various ISO standards and others to improve the designs. So hope that gives you what you need. If drop me a line if there's anything else.
I'll drop you a line. We use ISO 19880. We use the BCJ guidelines and the IGA guidelines. But anything else that we can pick up on, it just helps with what we're doing.
No, absolutely.
So,
yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks, Lee. I don't see any immediate questions from the rest of them. Oh, Jane Herbert, you just put your hand up. Welcome to come. Great, thanks,
Hi there.
Jane.
Hi, yeah, I was just interested. I work for NGen. We're a hydrogen production company. I've got the largest HEA project to deliver, and previously I was involved in some of the hydrogen projects at NGN, such as the H21 and the high deploy project, etc., and some of the home heating hydrogen projects as well. And I just wondered to what extent we went out to visit the homes that were receiving hydrogen over in Lochem in the Netherlands. I think that's just recently concluded after 3 years. And I just wondered to what extent the HSE takes on board. I know you've alluded to research and collaboration abroad. Do you actually take can you take the evidence provided from projects like that, or do you always have to generate your own evidence for the UK?
No, we would certainly use evidence that comes from other projects as well. So in the reporting of the work that we've done, which has been part of bigger consortia, obviously, we've pulled together what other information we've got from other places to back up any work that's done here. So yeah, no, absolutely. There are lots of challenges out there, Jane, and to try and for everybody to do all of them is crazy. So we're all trying to share information, which is very much what HiSafe's about.
Yeah. Thank you.
Welcome any other members just to come in either ask any direct questions or just to share their general experiences working in hydrogen safety from their specific commercial perspective. If not, Stuart, it looks like you might get off the hook slightly earlier than anticipated.
Yeah. No, that's fine with me.
Lee?
I'll come back in with another one. We're seeing much bigger, higher capacity, higher pressure multi-element gas containers, so tube trailers that we see on the road with hydrogen. Have you any comments to make around that? Any view from the HSE around the increasing pressure and storage capacity of tube trailers?
So I guess when they're out on the road, although we do kind of get involved in the consultation, it's not really part of what we regulate. But having said that, clearly as these trailers get bigger, higher pressure, higher capacity, we just need to recognize and understand that perhaps the level of hazard, the level of risk is changing a bit, and that we're doing all that we need to do to make sure that that's kept under control. And I think an important part, and I think everyone's aware of this and is doing it, for a safe developing hydrogen economy, regular checks, perhaps doing some of that more regularly in terms of inspection and all of those things, just to make sure that we do keep all those hazards under control. But I think for the trailers that are out there are good designs that are being tried and proven by others. And it's just a matter of doing all the things that we need to do to make sure that we keep all that under the control.
Okay.
Great. Thanks, Stuart. I think we've just had another question in the chat from Paul Holland from Hydrogen Safe. And his question is it too challenging for new hydrogen projects to get hazardous substances consent in the UK? Right.
I need to be very careful what I say here, because it's clearly I'm not part of that, what goes on there. I think and I'm not trying to be trite, but I think that the answer to that is, for the right site, you can get hazardous substance consent for what you want to do, but you need to be on the right site. And if you're not, it may be challenging.
Okay, thank you, Stuart. Any follow-on questions are welcome in regards to that response. If not, we'll just wait if any other questions emerge as people take things in. Okay, great. I don't think there's any further questions then. So thank you very much, Stuart, for coming to speak to the HEA today. Oh, there is another question. Apologies. This is from Emily Bradley from Statcraft. Her question is, how would the HSE alleviate general public's fear on safety around upcoming green hydrogen and also green ammonia production sites?
As far as HSE are concerned, there is a regulatory framework out there, and there are appropriate standards, and competent people will be able to develop facilities that are appropriate, provided they've got hazardous materials consent. And if you're getting into coma and all that, there's lots of things that you need to do properly to make sure you're in the right place. In terms of helping the public understand that, I think simply our role of showing that those things are properly done is what we can do to help kind of alleviate general public's fears. It's essentially there is a framework there of how you should do things safely, and if you comply with that. So I don't think there's much more to say.
Thank you. Thanks, Stuart. Any final questions?
I'll chip in with another one. I'm going to go back to my tube trailers question, Stuart. In your answer, sorry, I was just digesting your answer. You said HSE has no control over the trailers when they're on the road. So who does that fall under?
No. So it's transport. That's a transport regulation, Lee. So that
Okay.
follows on. That's not part of HC. That falls under the Department of Transport. So we do feed into that, and once the trailer enters a site, clearly we're looking at it differently.
Mm.
But transport of dangerous goods is not primarily HSE's concern. It's Department of Transport.
I see. Right. So when the trailer's on the road just outside the site, it's DFT. Once it crosses the gate into the site, it's HSE.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Interesting. And I guess that there is joined up thinking. Yeah.
Oh yes. Yeah.
Okay. I thought Keith might come in at this point.
Yeah, there you go. Hi, good to see you again.
Okay.
And thanks. Yeah, just on that, and I think it's a really important point because I think it was part of a discussion that you and I had some time ago, and it's really important point to point out that 1968, 28th of January, wasn't it? The ADR approvals came into place. So moving very large amounts of hydrogen around under really high pressure is not a new thing. And I think the question that I've got is really trying to understand a little bit about the process of HSE, which you I was very grateful. You gave me a little insight some time ago. You use references like that to build your advice and how you view risk. I think that's a fair say. And I didn't fully understand this, but how do you do that? How do you sort of, and where do you pick up your references from with regards safety and hydrogen?
Okay. So right? So you're thinking from the point of view of the work that we do, rather than how the regulatory side might put things together.
Yeah. It's just where do you get your reference points? Because
there's a whole load of stuff out there.
Yeah.
So if you Google the International Conference Hydrogen Safety, there have been 11 conferences with about maybe 150 papers on average at each of those conferences over the last 20 years. And those papers are, while they're not maybe direct references to the sorts of things you might be interested in, Keith, over time, what's been in that kind of body of work will certainly then cross-reference to other stuff that might be important out there. So it's quite a nice kind of record chronologically of the progress that's been made, the things that have been found, developments in standards, developments in ISO, all of that is kind of in there. It's not well, with the right search engine, you might be able to do it quite quickly, but there's lots of information in all of that. I mean, there are other sources as well. iGEM have their knowledge. Is it the knowledge hub that they have? There's lots of information in there. So yeah, that's kind of where we find most of it. Does that help? And I'm fairly confident that through what's in ICHS, you can get a good record of most of the stuff that is out there.
Yeah, it's very helpful. It's very helpful, and I think it's where we're, as we're an emerging market. We do sort of we often asking ourselves, how a vehicle can be travelling through a busy high street, legally with a ton and a bit of gas on it, and can't actually park in an industrial estate. And I think it's those kind of conundrums that we're all as an industry sort of face, and I know that you are too. It's just a voyage of discovery for us all. But yeah, that's very helpful to understand where those where those references come from. Thank you.
Okay, good. Thanks.
Okay, great. I don't think there's any further questions, but if there is, this is your final moment to raise the hands. As people have been thoughtful and slightly slower than perhaps other topics. So, Lee.
I'm back again.
Yeah,
Have you got? I mean, I'm going to write to you and get the details of that study for the HRS incidents because it's very, very interesting for the work we're doing. Is there any other work in HRS stations on the horizon at the moment? Okay, because it's just what we do, so I just want to have visibility of that.
I don't think that we're involved in, Lee. I don't think so. I know there's work going on around kind of heavy goods refueling, but we're not directly involved in any of that at the moment. But a look, if there were certainly a few papers at the international conference,
Right.
Which if you go and find those, I'm sure they'll take you to who's been doing that work and who might be able to help you.
We'll do that. We'll have a look at that. Thanks anyway.
Okay.
Okay, great. I think we'll wrap up there, Stuart.
Okay.
Well, thank you very much for your time once again. And I think your email is in the chat, or
Yep.
if not, we'll pop it in there. So
Okay.
any further questions, or you can contact Stuart directly, and please do get in touch if any HEA members who, if you have any kind of further ideas of what you'd like the HEA to do, kind of in the area of hydrogen safety in the round. So thank you very much, and the plug for the conference at the end of this month. We will share details of that, Stuart, so in our next member opportunities bulletin, so it reaches beyond this webinar as well.
Brilliant. Thank you very much.
So thanks a lot, everyone, and have a lovely rest
Cheers,
of
everyone.
the afternoon.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.